All right, so are you ready to dive deep into the world of Josh Waitzkin with me today?
Absolutely. I'm fascinated by this guy.
Yeah, he's not your typical chess prodigy story.
No, not at all.
We're going to be using his book, The Art of Learning, as our main guide.
Great book.
And pulling in some other fascinating stuff about his life.
Yeah.
You might recognize his story from the movie Searching for Bobby Fischer.
Oh, yeah, right.
But Waitzkin goes way beyond the chessboard later on.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
He becomes a Tai Chi champion. Can you believe that?
I know, it's crazy.
And his book, ties it all together with this really unique approach to learning.
It's amazing how he connects those two worlds.
Right.
You think chess and martial arts are completely different,
Right.
but he finds these underlying principles that apply to, mastering any skill.
And it all starts in this really unexpected place, Washington Square Park in New York City.
Really?
Yeah, imagine this bustling park full of chess hustlers.
Oh, wow.
Some real geniuses mixed in with, let's just say, some eccentric characters.
Sounds like a fascinating mix.
This was Waitzkin's chess school growing up.
So he's, learning from the streets.
Yeah, totally. He's 6 years old beating these seasoned players.
Wow.
There's this great story in the book about this old man who sees Waitzkin playing and just predicts he'll be a champion one day.
Like he sees something special in him?
Yeah, it's straight out of a movie.
I love those kind of stories.
But here's the thing. He wasn't just learning from one type of player, right?
Oh.
He had these two mentors who shaped his style in totally different ways.
Oh, interesting. So, two different schools of thought.
Yeah, exactly. So on one side, there's Bruce Pandolfini, this classically trained chess master,
Okay.
all about deep strategy,
Fundamentals.
Yeah. And then on the other side, you've got these street smart hustlers
Oh, wow.
teaching him how to play mind games with his opponents.
So it's like psychological warfare.
Yeah, it's crazy. He's combining this intellectual chess knowledge with this almost psychological warfare. No wonder he was such a force.
That's a really powerful combination.
Yeah. It makes you think about what those street smarts are that we need to develop in our own fields.
Yeah, beyond just the textbook stuff.
Right. What are those unwritten rules of the game?
Exactly.
And of course, you can't forget about this intense rivalry he has with another young prodigy, Jeff Sarwer.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of him.
Those national tournaments they competed in must have been pressure cookers.
Oh, yeah, so much riding on every move.
And all those early wins, they definitely shaped his path.
Sure.
But what's interesting is that Waitzkin talks about how early success can almost be a trap.
A trap? How so?
It's like you start relying on talent alone and stop pushing yourself to grow.
Well, I see. So you get complacent.
Exactly. And that's where that whole growth mindset idea comes in.
Right. You've got to keep learning even when you're at the top of your game.
And that's a challenge we all face, not just chess prodigies.
Absolutely. It's about constantly evolving.
He doesn't spend too much time, on the whole entity versus learning theories of intelligence. But he makes it very clear it's not about being born brilliant.
It's about the effort you put in.
Yeah, it's about developing your abilities through effort and, honestly, a willingness to screw up along the way.
To embrace those mistakes.
He actually talks about how his early success almost became a liability when he started facing tougher opponents.
Oh, that's interesting. So it kind of backfired.
Yeah, he realized that relying solely on his natural talent just wasn't enough.
He had to up his game.
Yeah, he had to learn how to adapt, analyze his mistakes, and constantly push himself beyond his comfort zone.
It's like hitting that plateau we all experience.
Right, whether it's in our careers, our fitness, whatever. How do we push past that point where natural ability just doesn't cut it anymore?
Exactly. We all hit that wall eventually.
And this is where things get really interesting. He transitions from this, hyper-competitive chess world to the art of Tai Chi Chuan.
Wait, what? Seriously?
I know, right? It seems completely random.
Totally different worlds.
But he connects it back to his learning philosophy.
I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So I have to admit, that's what really hooked me. Why would a chess master switch to martial arts?
It doesn't seem to make sense on the surface.
Right, but then you realize it's all part of this bigger picture he's painting about learning and mastery.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
It's like he was looking for a counterbalance to that intensity of chess.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Tai Chi is all about inner peace balance, cultivating this internal energy.
Right, very different from the cutthroat world of chess.
Totally opposites, but maybe that's the point,
Like finding that balance.
And that's where this soft zone concept comes in.
Okay, what's the soft zone all about?
It's about entering this state of flow, being completely present and focused in the moment.
Sounds powerful.
Imagine letting go of all those distractions, the anxieties, that inner critic.
Just being in the moment.
Yeah, and just tapping into this pure, effortless action.
I like that, effortless action.
He even tells this crazy story about experiencing an earthquake during a chess match in India. Yeah, so the ground is shaking, everyone's freaking out, and he suddenly enters this soft zone,
In the middle of an earthquake.
and he solves this complex chess problem.
Wow, that's incredible.
So can we really train ourselves to find that calmness amidst chaos?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
I think he's saying that life throws curveballs.
Yeah, it definitely does.
But if you can develop that inner stillness, you can handle anything.
And that applies to way more than just chess or Tai Chi.
Right, we all need that kind of resilience in the face of pressure.
Absolutely.
So mastering the soft zone can't be easy.
No, I imagine it takes a lot of work.
We're talking about rewiring our brains to respond differently to stress.
It's a big challenge.
And Waitzkin seems to be all about embracing those challenges.
He doesn't shy away from the tough stuff.
He actually has this idea of investment in loss, which sounds kind of counterintuitive, right?
Investment in loss, what does that even mean?
You wouldn't think losing is a good thing.
No, not usually.
But his point is that setbacks are essential for growth.
Okay, I'm starting to see where he's going with this. He tells this funny story about getting repeatedly thrown around by these more experienced Tai Chi practitioners.
So he was getting his butt kicked.
Pretty much. But he saw it as a positive thing.
Really?
Yeah, he saw it as an opportunity to learn to adapt, to figure out what he was doing wrong.
So it's like that saying, fall down 7 times, get up 8.
Exactly. It's about turning those setbacks into fuel for growth.
And that ties into another key concept from the book, making smaller circles.
Right.
Okay, break that down for me. What does that even mean?
It's about focusing intensely on those tiny details to improve your overall mastery of a skill.
So it's like zooming in on the micro level.
Yeah, instead of trying to master everything at once, you break down a complex skill into smaller, manageable chunks,
Right.
and then you focus on those with laser-like precision.
So it's like that saying, inch by inch, it's a cinch.
Exactly.
You're not trying to boil the ocean. You're just focusing on one drop at a time.
And Waitzkin uses examples like spending hours refining a single punch
Oh, wow.
or practicing specific Tai Chi movements over and over again.
So repetition is key.
It's not about quantity, it's about quality.
It's interesting how he connects this to that idea of slowing down time.
You mean like that almost superhuman ability to perceive things in slow motion?
Yeah, exactly like those movie scenes where everything slows down and the hero can dodge bullets.
Well, he talks about achieving this through intense focus and awareness.
So it's not some kind of superpower.
Not in the literal sense,
Yeah.
but when you're fully absorbed in the present moment, your perception of time can actually shift.
I've experienced that before, like when you're totally in the zone
Yeah, everything else just fades away.
and you're hyper aware of what's right in front of you.
Exactly.
He has this crazy story about breaking his hand during a Tai Chi tournament.
A broken hand that's gotta hurt.
You'd think that would be game over, right?
Yeah, I'd tap out.
But get this, he says the injury actually heightened his awareness and helped him win.
Wait, how is that even possible?
He says the pain forced him to focus even more intensely.
So it's like he had to tune out everything else.
Yeah, and just react purely on instinct.
Wow, so it's like his body took over.
It's like adversity can actually push us to a whole new level of performance if we can harness it the right way.
That's pretty amazing.
And this is where Waitzkin gets into this whole idea of debunking the illusion of the mystical.
Okay, I'm listening.
He says, intuition isn't some magical power. It's a product of deeply internalized knowledge and pattern recognition.
So it's like experience building up over time.
The more you practice, the more you refine your skills, the more your intuition develops.
It becomes almost like a sixth sense.
Right. But here's the key question. How do you actually build that intuition?
How do we tap into that zone of peak performance?
Waitzkin says it's all about building a personalized trigger.
A trigger like a switch that flips you into that flow state.
Precisely. He uses the example of working with this businessman named Dennis,
Okay,
who was struggling to focus in high-pressure meetings.
I think we've all been there.
Right.
Yeah.
These meetings can be intense.
So what did Waitzkin do?
He helped Dennis create a routine involving things like listening to calming music, meditation, stretching, and enjoying a healthy snack.
Sounds relaxing.
And then he had him go through this routine an hour before playing catch with his son.
Okay, so he's linking this routine to a pleasurable activity.
Yeah, something that naturally evokes a sense of relaxation and focus.
I see.
And the key is consistency. By repeatedly pairing the routine with that pleasurable activity, Dennis's body and mind started to associate those feelings with the routine itself.
So it becomes like a conditioned response.
You go through the routine and boom, you're in the zone.
I like that.
And it worked. Dennis found that even in a stressful meeting environment, he was able to trigger that same sense of calm and focus.
Just by going through his routine.
Yeah, pretty cool, huh?
It's like hacking your nervous system to perform on demand.
I'm already thinking about what my own trigger routine could look like.
Me too.
But let's shift gears for a moment and talk about how Waitzkin puts all this into practice in a big way. When he goes to the World Tai Chi Chuan Championships in Taiwan,
Wow. The World Championships?
this is where it all comes together. The growth mindset, the investment in loss, the soft zone, the triggers.
Bringing his A game.
He's using it all to navigate this incredibly challenging experience.
What kind of challenges did he face?
While he's up against unfamiliar opponents,
Yeah.
their rule changes, he's dealing with potential bias against him as a foreigner.
So he's got a lot stacked against him.
He even tells a story about practicing in a typhoon with his teammate.
A typhoon?
Talk about adapting to the unexpected.
That's crazy.
It seems like he was constantly pushing his limits and embracing those challenges.
So he's not letting anything hold him back.
And of course, there's that final championship match.
The moment of truth?
The pressure must have been intense,
I can only imagine.
but he manages to pull off the win
He did it.
in a dramatic sudden death playoff.
What a story.
But what's really interesting is how he reflects on the experience afterward. He doesn't shy away from the darker side of competition. You know, that
Oh,
almost
yeah.
obsessive drive to win.
Yeah, it's like a double-edged sword.
It makes you wonder, can you really be a fierce competitor and a Zen master at the same time?
That's a tough question.
He acknowledges that the pursuit of excellence can bring out both our brightest and our darkest qualities.
It's about finding that balance.
Channeling those
Yeah.
intense emotions into a constructive force.
And that's where this idea of changing voice comes in.
Yeah.
You know, which I think is really relevant to all of us.
Changing voice. What do you mean by that?
Well, Waitzkin talks about how he went through this phase in his chess career where he's trying to emulate the style of Anatoly Karpov.
Karpov, that legendary world champion.
Exactly known for his, like, slow, suffocating style.
Like an anaconda just squeezing the life out of his opponent.
Right, but that style wasn't a natural fit for Waitzkin. You know,
Yeah, he was more of an attacking player.
someone who thrived in those chaotic, unpredictable situations.
So trying to force himself into this Karpovian mold actually backfired.
He started doubting his instincts, overthinking his moves.
It's like he lost that spark.
Yeah, he lost that creativity and intuition that had made him so successful.
It's like he was trying to become someone he wasn't.
Right. And it makes you wonder, how often do we do that in our own lives? You know,
Oh, totally. Trying to fit into some mold that doesn't quite suit us.
like trying to wear someone else's clothes.
They might look great on them, but on you, they just feel awkward and uncomfortable.
Exactly. And Waitzkin actually uses this really interesting analogy of horse training to illustrate this point.
Oh, that's cool. I love analogies.
He talks about the difference between breaking a horse and gentling it.
Okay, I'm listening. Break it down for me.
So breaking a horse is all about dominance and control.
You're forcing the horse into submission.
Right. You can make it do what you want, but it's not going to be happy about it.
It's like that old saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
Exactly. You can force someone to do something, but if they're not internally motivated, they'll never truly excel.
So then what's the gentling approach?
It's about building trust with the horse, understanding its nature, and guiding it in a way that allows its innate abilities to shine through.
So it's more about collaboration.
Yeah, working with the horse's natural instincts instead of trying to suppress them.
I like that.
And this brings us back to the importance of finding your own voice, your own style, your own way of approaching whatever it is you're passionate about.
Right. It's not about copying someone else's success.
It's about integrating those external influences in a way that aligns with your own strengths and personality.
And for Waitzkin, that journey led him to Tai Chi,
It was like this path to rediscovering his authentic self.
both physically and mentally.
He talks about how those early days of getting tossed around by more experienced Tai Chi practitioners were actually crucial to his development.
There's that investment in loss idea again.
Right, turning those setbacks into opportunities for growth.
He learned to embrace those moments, to use them to identify his weaknesses and refine his technique.
And he also talks about making smaller circles, you know.
Right, that laser focus on the details, mastering one small thing at a time.
He uses the example of spending hours refining a single punch or meticulously practicing specific Tai Chi movements.
It's all about quality over quantity.
And all of this culminates in his ability to slow down time during competition. you know.
That heightened awareness where he can perceive his opponent's movements in slow motion.
Exactly. And it's not just about physical skills either.
Right. He applies these same principles to mental performance as well.
He talks about using visualization and meditation to train his mind to develop that deep focus and presence.
It's like he's training his mind like an athlete trains their body.
Exactly. And he emphasizes the importance of finding those activities that bring you a sense of calm and focus,
And then incorporating them into your daily routine.
creating those triggers, those rituals that help you access that flow state on demand.
So, what does all this mean for our listeners? What's the takeaway here?
I think it's about embracing that growth mindset, recognizing that mastery isn't a destination, it's a journey.
It's about constantly pushing ourselves, embracing challenges, and finding joy in the process of learning and growing.
And it doesn't have to be about some grand pursuit. It can be something as simple as learning a new language, improving your cooking skills, or even just being more present in your everyday life.
Waitzkin gives us this framework, these tools that we can apply to any area of our lives.
It's about finding those small circles where we can focus our energy and attention and then mastering them one step at a time.
So, dear listener, what's one small step you can take today? What's one area where you can apply these principles and start making progress?
Remember, it's not about being perfect. It's about being better than you were yesterday.
And if you want to dive deeper into these ideas, definitely check out Josh Waitzkin's book, The Art of Learning.
It's a treasure trove of insights and practical advice that can truly transform your approach to learning and life.
Until next time, keep those minds curious, those skills sharp, and embrace those challenges. The journey is where the real magic happens.